I was a pediatric surgeon who'd learned to survive by feeling nothing. Years of saving children's lives had turned me cold, distant, efficient, but empty. Then I met Zelda, a three-legged street dog on a beach I didn't want to visit. She walked into my life with no fear, no shame about what she'd lost, just quiet trust. When I brought her to the hospital, she didn't just heal my young patients. She gave me back the part of myself I'd buried to survive. This is the story of how a rescue dog became my therapist, and how sometimes the things we save end up saving us in ways we never expected. People think surgeons are strong, calm, steady. They don't see what it costs. I learned to turn my feelings down because that's the only way I could do my job. Over time, steady turned into distant. I stopped feeling anything at all until a three-legged street dog walked into my life and changed everything. I became good at my job by becoming less human. That's what no one tells you about being a pediatric surgeon. They teach you how to cut, how to save, how to stay calm when a child's heart stops beating under your hands. But they don't teach you how to carry all that weight and still feel like a person at the end of the day. So I learned to turn it off. The fear, the grief, the connection. I became steady, reliable, unshakable, and completely empty. I went through my days like a machine, fixed bodies, signed charts, went home to an apartment that felt more like a waiting room than a life. I told myself this was what survival looked like, that caring less was the only way to keep going. Then I took a vacation I didn't want. A break I didn't believe I needed. A trip to a beach where I planned to do absolutely nothing. That's where I met Zelda. She was lying in the shade near a food stand, scruffy, skinny, missing a back leg. She wasn't begging, wasn't hiding, just existing, watching the world go by like she had all the time in the universe. I didn't plan to stop, didn't plan to care. But when she stood up and walked over to me, hopping on three legs without a trace of shame or fear, something inside me cracked. This is the story of Zelda, the three-legged street dog who became a therapy dog for my pediatric patients and my own unexpected therapist. The dog who taught me that surviving doesn't mean shutting down, and that sometimes healing walks in on three legs when you least expect it. If this story reminded you that it's okay to feel again, subscribe for more heartwarming stories like this one. Drop a comment below and tell us about a time an animal changed your life. We'd love to hear your story. People think surgeons are strong, calm, steady. They don't see what it costs. I learned to turn my feelings down because that was the only way I could do my job. When you're cutting into a child's chest, you can't fall apart. When parents are sobbing in the hallway waiting for news, you can't cry with them. Someone has to stay steady, so I became that person. Over time, steady turned into something else. Distant, cold, empty. I stopped feeling much of anything. No highs, no lows. Just tasks on a list. Schedules to follow. Hands moving the way they'd been trained to move. I went home alone every night, ate whatever was easiest, slept without dreaming, and woke up already exhausted. The kids noticed before I did. They still smiled at me when I walked into their rooms, but something was missing. I was fixing their bodies without really seeing them. Just another case, another chart, another surgery. I told myself that was fine, that caring less was just the price of surviving this job. Then my colleagues forced me to take a vacation I didn't want, a beach trip I didn't need, a break I didn't believe would help anything. I went because I had to. Sat on that beach, feeling exactly as empty as I did at home. And that's where I met Zelda. She wasn't supposed to change my life. She just walked into it like she'd been looking for me all along. I saw her near a food stand, lying in the shade like she owned the entire beach. One ear bent at a weird angle, ribs showing through patchy fur. Only 3 legs. She wasn't begging, wasn't cowering, just lying there watching the world pass by, like she had nowhere else to be. I remember thinking, how is she this calm? A local told me she was a pot cake. That's what they call the street dogs there. She'd lost her back leg as a puppy. No one knew how. She hopped when she walked, slow but steady. No rush, no shame, no fear. I didn't plan to stop, didn't plan to touch her. But when I walked past, she stood up, hopped over, and leaned her whole body against my leg like she'd already decided something about me. I froze. That small weight against my calf felt heavier than it should have, like it meant something. I crouched down. She looked straight into my face. No pity in her eyes, no sadness. Just this quiet, steady trust that I hadn't earned yet. I sat there for a long time, scratching behind her bent ear while tourists walked around us, and I felt something crack open inside me. Not big, just enough to notice. That night back at the hotel, I couldn't stop thinking about her, about how she moved through the world without letting what she'd lost define her. By morning, I was at the shelter filling out adoption papers I didn't remember deciding to sign. Zelda hated the crate on the plane. She cried the whole flight like I'd betrayed her. I kept my fingers pushed through the bars, whispering apologies I wasn't sure she understood. When we finally got to my apartment, she stood in the middle of the living room like it was a puzzle she needed to figure out. She sniffed every corner, listened to every sound, studied every shadow. I watched her more than she watched me. She didn't act broken, didn't act grateful or scared. She just was. She figured out the couch in one afternoon, claimed the spot by the window in an hour, learned me in about a week. At night, she slept pressed hard against my legs, like she needed to make sure I was still there. Some nights I woke up because she was dreaming, paws twitching, breathing fast, making these small sounds that broke my heart. I didn't wake her. I just rested my hand on her back and waited until she settled. That was new for me, staying still for someone else's fear instead of my own. I started talking to her. About nothing at first, then about work, about the kids I couldn't save, about the ones I did save but still thought about at 3 in the morning. She just listened, didn't try to fix anything, didn't offer solutions, and somehow that helped more than anything else ever had. For the first time in years, I wasn't completely alone in my own head. The first time Zelda followed me to the door in the morning, hopping fast with her tail up high, I almost called in sick just to stay with her. Almost. I didn't bring her to the hospital right away. That felt impossible. Dogs didn't belong in operating rooms and pediatric wards, especially not 3-legged street dogs with bent ears. But then a little boy named Marcus asked about her. He'd seen her photo on my phone while I was checking his labs. Marcus had one arm that was shorter than the other. He stared at that picture like it was the most important thing in the room. "She looks brave," he said quietly. That word stuck with me for days. A week later, after mountains of paperwork and way too much doubt, Zelda walked into the pediatric ward wearing a borrowed therapy vest that was 3 sizes too big. Every single kid saw her missing leg first. Then they saw her tail wagging. They laughed, asked questions, reached out with hands that had IV lines and bandages. And Zelda leaned into every single touch, like she'd been waiting her whole life for this exact room. Like this was what she was meant to do all along. For the first time in years, I watched my patient smile without pain attached to it. Not because of me, not because of medicine, because of a 3-legged dog who showed them that being different didn't mean being less. Zelda didn't perform, didn't do tricks or follow commands to impress anyone. She just existed, Kids on IV poles followed her slowly down the hall. Kids with surgical scars ran their fingers over hers. Parents cried quietly in corners when they thought no one was watching. One little girl with a prosthetic leg whispered, "She's like me." That broke something wide open inside my chest. I started seeing myself through Zelda's eyes, not as the surgeon who had all the answers, not as the cold one who couldn't connect, just a person who showed up and stayed. I started kneeling down again when I talked to kids, started asking questions that had nothing to do with medicine, started listening without checking my watch every 30 seconds. Zelda slept under hospital beds during rounds, sat quietly beside wheelchairs, let kids brush her fur with shaky hands while they waited for test results or bad news. She was living proof that loss didn't have to end your story, that you could be missing something and still be whole. And every single day, I felt something coming back to me, slowly, painfully, but real. Feeling, not the shutdown version I'd been running on for years. Actual feeling, the kind that hurt sometimes, but also reminded me I was still alive. Zelda wasn't just healing my patients, she was healing me. And I didn't even realize how much I'd needed it until it started happening. It happened after a long surgery that didn't go the way we'd hoped. I washed my hands, peeled off my gloves, walked straight past everyone into the supply room, and sat down on the floor because I couldn't hold myself up anymore. Zelda followed me in. No therapy vest, no official reason to be there. Just her. She sat down right beside me and leaned her entire body weight into my chest. I didn't stop the tears this time. Didn't swallow them down or turn them off like I'd trained myself to do for years. I just let them come, loud, ugly, completely human. She stayed pressed against me until they passed, didn't move, didn't pull away, didn't act uncomfortable with my breaking down. No words, no trying to fix it, no telling me it would be okay. Just weight, warmth. Two bodies breathing together in a storage room that smelled like antiseptic and failure. That was the moment I knew for certain. She wasn't just helping my patients feel less alone. She was keeping me from completely disappearing. All those years I thought I had to shut down to survive this job. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe I just needed someone who could sit with me in the worst moments without needing me to be strong. Zelda had become that someone. And somehow, that made everything else possible again. Kids started asking if Zelda could visit before their surgeries, after their surgeries, on bad days, on good ones, on days when nothing was happening at all. They told her secrets they couldn't tell anyone else, told her their fears about going home or not going home, told her things they couldn't say to their parents or to me. And somehow, that made them start telling me more too. I stopped thinking of myself as broken, just changed. Different than I used to be, but not ruined. Zelda didn't make me softer. She made me present, made me show up as myself instead of as the version of me I thought I had to be. She reminded me why I became a doctor in the first place. Not to be perfect, not to have all the answers, not to stay strong and untouchable all the time, but to care. To actually see the kids in front of me as people, not just cases. To let it matter when things went wrong. To let it matter when things went right. Even when caring hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because that's the whole point. The hurt means it mattered. The hurt means you were there for real. Zelda taught me that just by being herself, a three-legged dog who showed up every day without pretending to be anything other than exactly what she was. And maybe that's all any of us really needs to do. People call Zelda a therapy dog now. I smile every time they say it. They don't know she was my therapy first. She walks on three legs, but somehow she carries more balance than I ever did on two. She doesn't rush through life. doesn't hide what she's lost. She just shows up every single day exactly as she is. And because of her, I do too. I still cut, still operate, still lose patience sometimes despite doing everything right. I still have hard days that break me wide open, but I feel them now. All of it. The wins and the losses, the grief and the hope, the weight of caring about people I can't always save. And when I come home at the end of those days, she's there, tail moving, eyes steady, reminding me that survival doesn't mean shutting down and going numb. It means staying alive inside yourself even when it's painful. Sometimes healing walks in on 3 legs when you least expect it, shows up on a beach you didn't want to visit, leans against your leg like it already knows you. And sometimes the dog you think you're rescuing turns out to be the one who saves you. Zelda gave me back to myself, the version that feels, the version that cares, the version that's allowed to be human even while trying to save lives. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more stories like this. Drop a comment below